clicking?
I've clicked.
I don't know. All I know is I'm totally chill. Welcome to Whiskey and Bagels. We're on vacay.
Where are you?
Well, I'm still at home, but I'm going to Florida. Welcome to Whiskey and
Yay!
Bagels, everyone. Hey, I want to announce as we get started into this, if you click on the link below, on my channel, you can get tickets to my upcoming event in Port St. Lucie in October 15th and 16th. And then I'm going to be down there again in November 4th and 5th in Largo, which is near Clearwater and Tampa. So coast to coast in Florida. I just thought I'd have a lot of fun with this and act like I'm here already. Hi, Penny. Who are you?
I'm astrologer and life coach Penny Dix, and I'm actually in the sunny Mediterranean in Gozo, and it's just really super cool here. And you look super cool.
I'm gonna put those shades on whenever I need to
Oh,
throughout this because you're so it's so funny. So we have this running joke behind the scenes of like what percentage Penny talks and what percentage I talk. You really closed the gap last week. It was good.
I really worked hard, didn't I?
I'm proud of you.
Short of saying shut up.
No. STFU. That's where you were going with that one. You're like, listen, you know, we're a couple of beautiful souls that get excited when we see each other. And that's our shtick. Like we just love each other that way. So anyways, how are you doing? Like, how are you finding the astrology of clients and the energy of people right now?
Actually, that's really interesting because suddenly this week I have a tsunami of inquiries for readings. And, you know, it goes like that, doesn't it? You get a sort of a dip with not much going on. And then suddenly I've just been inundated, which is fabulous. And I'm really pleased. And I can't wait to work with these people. Some of them in the US, some of them are in the UK. And it's great. But and also I have to talk about the fact that my YouTube channel is just 51 subs short of that 1K milestone. So to everyone on this channel who has already subscribed, thank you so much. I love you. And if you haven't subscribed, could you please still subscribe to my channel and get me up to that 1K milestone?
Oh, it's a whole other world in YouTube when you hit 1,000. And you know what? I'm gonna unlike you and then subscribe again just because I want to be in that like final 50. And you're like, you were like number 65 right now. Like it's okay. I'll lose my place in line. I'm okay with that. That's amazing though. And it's really, I think a lot of people, you know, when you're doing this content stuff, and it takes a lot of energy. It really does. And some of it is like promotional. Hey, let's get readings, let's get gigs, let's, you know, do that sort of thing. But we really have something to say. And one of the things I've noticed about your shorts, incredibly effective, like stick and move. I mean, this stuff is great. Put it on put it on, listen to it. You know, we have some visuals, but you can just listen to it, you know, and get by. What you're talking about is just quick information and running with it. I think is really effective. I think that's going to put you over it more than anything.
Thank you. Yes,
it's good stuff.
And I'm also doing these shorts, you know, quick ones that you just put up, which are 60 seconds long. And it's literally go, hi, how are you? The aspect for the day.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm turning more towards the theatric. I'm actually going to start towards the theatrics, you know, like putting Florida in my background and wearing shades and being a method actor. I actually have been working on something. And by the way, my members actually see these videos first for a full week. They get to, you know, they get to see it beforehand. You know, the latest Zelensky one, Putin one. And I didn't even realize I had released the Zelensky one on the Ukraine Independence Day. Didn't even.
That's incredible.
That's, you know, sometimes you really try and plan things, and then other times you're like, I did what?
And I watched the Putin one today.
It's got some good stuff in it, and it's you know, and by choice we you know, it's funny. It's like we do talk about aspects of this, but when it's our meeting of the minds with this, you know, we've got to talk about, we talked a lot about the Mars going into Gemini. But then we have two other aspects coming up here that are just going to be.
I know, but isn't it extraordinary that the daughter of one of his kind of right-hand men, Putin's right-hand men,
Yeah.
got sadly blown up in that car bomb the day that Mars moved into Gemini, and there was strange energy around that day. Everyone I encountered was short-tempered, frustrated, angry, road use,
I
everything.
too have seen the uptick of almost like nervous energy, like, hey, can I just get 10 minutes of your time? I don't even know if I need a full reading. You know, these are people that I've coached, people that I've worked with before, you know, and I'm trying to like slot and find time, and you know, and it's, you know, still in, you know, recovering from this foot thing, which is going great. I'm really gonna be 100%. But you know, you feel that energy, that nervous energy of like, what do I need to do? What is going wrong? And, you know, it's also allowing people to act and behave in ways that they feel justified. There's a lot of justified behavior. It doesn't make it right. You know, if people have a beef with someone or don't want to have a comfortable conversation, I'm seeing people just flat out make stuff up because they want to feel good about themselves. So they put other people down. And by the way, just as a side note in this, I don't care how anybody reads this, you're not a light worker if you do that. You're just not. You're something else, and I'm just gonna leave that there because I know some people watch this channel to see if I say anything. I just said it. You're a piece of crap for doing it. They take out innocent people. They extrapolate information. They don't have the full story. They don't have the full perspective, and then they run with it. And you know, in one way, it shows up as a car bombing. In another way, it shows up as a released, redacted, you know, affidavit, and it's a leak here, it's a leak there. You know, we talk a lot about Trump because it is the disaster code that's going on right now that we're seeing with some of these things. But for personal triumph, notice that it's your go time. It's a calling card to be like, this is the time to turn it upside down. This is the time to reevaluate it. I mean, do you find that with your world?
And I was going to say, it's also, I'm finding it's collectively, just in general, with people that one comes in contact with. I'm coming across people with stories that they're sort of imparting to me where people are being absolutely vile to them, and all made up stuff. And there's no respect for each other. And
Zero.
nobody has the patience anymore to do the work on themselves. People don't seem to understand that actually, to make things happen in this life, we have to have an element of discipline, and we have to take responsibility for our lives.
Ding, ding. And when you triangulate with everybody else, you know, it's funny that therapy of Donald Trump that we did, you know, was it last week, even the week before? The whole point of it was he doesn't take responsibility. You know,
No.
you're seeing the worst of the worst in that. And it's, you know, there's a dynamic here where you're seeing the worst of the worst of people right now. You're seeing the part of their insecurities come out. You see the part of, you know, I would rather talk garbage about somebody else than take my own responsibility and move myself forward. Like it doesn't matter what you do in life. If you're not focusing on what you're doing and you're trying to triangulate everybody else, you are never going to get there. You're just not. You're not going to get good at what you do, and you're certainly not going to be effective when you get there.
Do you know what I think? This is part of it. That is that the planets are kind of slowing down to rev up, to really kind of push humanity into another universe, in a sense, because I'm thinking about Pluto moving into Aquarius, and it's like you can feel this massive kind of energy, which is like building up with its energy. It goes direct in the beginning of October, and then it doesn't go retrograde till it's gone into Aquarius. It goes into Aquarius at the end of March next year. And this is about the whole transformation of society in general. this feels like a tsunami. This feels like an earthquake.
Yeah.
And I just think that the energy is going to be extraordinary. The things we see unfold over the next kind of few months, really, the next 6 months.
And it's interesting.
Well,
it's interesting because I'm akinning what's happening now to Trump. I put out the video with Zelensky and then with Putin. And the Trump one, I realized I really have an opportunity to make this a little more theatrical. If you're a Star Wars fan, it's very much like the Order 66 is coming, where he's just going to unleash everything because it's all he's got. It's like he's either in checkmate or thinks he has them in checkmate, and he's just going to release the Kraken, so to speak. There it is.
Is he going to kind of cause a, I don't know, revolution?
Oh, 100%. He thinks, Trump's purpose in all of this, when I first did his chart, and I have to find where I did this. I actually did it for my group, where I talked about why he won the election and what his purpose is, because there were a lot of people on the day that Trump won the election in 16. My space, it was designed a little bit differently, but it was a meditation space, whatever. There were people that showed up that were just crying. They were sobbing because they were just like, how is this guy? This guy's bombastic. And so that's where my dive into astrology I really was like, okay, we got to find purpose. We can't just call it out.
Yeah.
And his purpose was about uncovering this. He went into this saying, I'm going to drain the swamp. Sometimes in order to drain the swamp, you have to become the creature.
Mm.
And that's what he's doing. I'm actually giving him credit for just trusting whatever this is. Now, it's an anti-human thing, but it's still appropriate. But I think things are ripe for that because you do have Mars in Gemini. And by the way, Mars in Gemini until the end of March, right? Right. So you've got these, that's another point
into Aquarius
where we're pulling that out. Aquarius is really going to get wrapped up. I'm actually working on another video, and it's funny. I'm going to talk to you after this, but I want you to collaborate on one of my videos. Not like this though. I'm actually doing one on, and I shared this with you. I want to pick apart the Age of Aquarius, the song, and talk about why that actually comes in and where we're going to this. Yeah. I've got a specific role in a method act. You're going to become a method actress.
Do I have to dress up, and can I kind of,
Ironically, there's no clothes involved, so I'm just gonna kind of go.
Did I lead myself into that one?
You'll be wearing nothing but flowers, baby. So cheeky. But anyways, enough about the ideas. What chart do you want me to pull up first? You want me to pull up the Uranus or the
Uranus retrograde first? That's just happened. It literally happened yesterday, Wednesday, because we're recording this on Thursday, the 25th. So the Uranus retrograde actually happened yesterday. And I think it is significant because it stays retrograde. Again, I think it's till, and I can't remember, I'll have to look it up, but I think it's till March, or is it?
I think it goes March. I think you're accurate with that. And we're looking at this on the 24th.
Looking, and no, it's gone direct before then. Maybe it's January. Oh, it goes direct in January. It goes direct on the 22nd of January next year, Uranus. So it goes back to 14 degrees. And
wow, I'm looking at this chart and I'm just shaking my head. Holy crap. Now, so anybody that doesn't follow astrology, you look at this, you're like, what's a bunch of lines here? What's a bunch of lines here? The thing that jumps out at me first and foremost is, of course, Pluto to Gemini to Mars. That trine right there. That trine of, you've got this in the ninth house with Mercury, the kind of uncovering of what the right things are, so to speak. And then you've got Mars, sitting there in sixth house of the, hidden enemies, open enemies.
Pluto, as well as Mars, Mercury, haven't you?
What's that?
You've got Pluto, Mars, Mercury in a trine. Yes.
And that is, and Pluto being like, hey, we got to get this right. We've got to get this right. So anytime people are going to like go off the cuff, this Uranus retrograde is being marked by, and again, this is one static position. Of course, you know, Mercury has already moved on. That's, you know, that's not the point. The point is that the energy of this going retrograde, and the retrograde in a way, this is the Uranus retrograde natal chart for this retrograde.
Yeah.
Right. That's the way to look at this. So that's why we hold it in place and we go, we can do this today or tomorrow. It's not going to change.
Yeah.
This is going to, you know, the weather is going to change daily, but you have the sun that just moved into Virgo. You know, you have,
but I think what's interesting is you've got Mercury in Virgo too. And Mercury in Virgo is about the attention to the detail. It's about really making sure that the words you're using are the correct words. You know, that you're getting the message across. And it's like Uranus going backwards is almost like, now we didn't get it all sorted the first time, so let's go back over the last kind of few degrees and see if we can actually find a better way to solve the current problems. But because I'm Uranus, I'm going to probably throw a few spanners in the work and surprise a lot of you.
I'm throwing sparks. So that what this means to astrologers is this Uranus retrograde is going to be marked by things like, okay, so we have a few more congressional hearings about the January 6th. Now it's, those didn't convince you. These are going to be damning, right? Oh, we did a raid and we found a certain amount of information and we need to find more information. Oh, we're going to find more information. You had a conversation about, you know, about like, you know, you're talking trash about somebody and you're like, you think that you're going to get away with it. Oh, don't worry. The long-term truth will come out. Everybody lives in a glass house. Absolutely. Like this is a glass house scenario. What's that?
I was just going to say, absolutely spot on. The truth will come out. The sun is in the 9th house in Virgo. There will be such meticulous attention to detail, and the sun will shed light on the details of what needs to be exposed. And I think Uranus is going to really upset the apple cart.
You know, and I think it's a necessary thing, because don't forget too, we also have the Pluto return in the US. We are doing this retrograde dance over the return, you know, and I mean, look at all of these retrogrades. Just look at them sitting in the personal houses. You know, you've got Pluto, you've got Saturn, you've got Neptune, you've got Jupiter, you've got Chiron. I'm going through another Chiron return. Damn it. You know, and then you've got Mars in that will go retrograde in what?
It's at the end of October.
Okay, fair enough. So it's not necessarily resonant to this. We'll let Mars have its day down the road. But I know that we also have, you know, I was interviewing somebody the other day and she goes, isn't it great that, you know, the moon's in retrograde right now? I said, honey, I go, no, I won't be on your show. But then you also have this other, you know, this square action with Mars and the sun, you know, and that is that affront to, you know, Gemini and that duality. And it's like, I know we go, you know, political a lot.
This energy, I'll just tell you, because I've just literally, remember I said I wanted to record a heads up this afternoon, which I've done, which I'm going to publish on Monday. But it's all about Mars square the sun, because Mars is squaring the sun for over a week. And if you think about Mars in Gemini, which is kind of, the sort of the edginess of Gemini and the kind of duality, and Mars just wants to get things done. But the sun's in Virgo, that's anxiety and worry and confusion, and you've got this Mars squaring it. You know, I just think we're in for a week next week of difficulties with always being clear about what it is. It's like overthinking. I think there's going to be a lot of overthinking, and it won't just be everybody. it's going to affect kind of like world leaders. So you're going to have people making knee-jerk decisions, like Putin, who I saw on the news, wants to declare war. I don't know on whom, I think on everyone, just so he can conscript some poor young lads, Russian lads, into his army.
That's so going to backfire on him. I mean, it just is, you know, and then you see this square to the North Node, to Venus, to Saturn. You know, Saturn and Venus are in opposition. Of course, there's a structural issue.
Yeah.
Of course, there is a fate-based combination. And it's funny, you know, Uranus even, you know, talking about being in retrograde is in the South Node. We are very comfortable with the antithesis of things right now. We are very comfortable with the idea that up is down and down is up. And there's a difference of duality. Duality is meant to create the kinetic energy of change, of moving forward, of life, of experiences. Right now, that kinetic energy is being used for confusion, for misdirect, for gaslighting. And what's interesting is, you know, it's a type of thing where people will take a shred of truth and just paint an entire picture from one swatch.
Yeah.
Because we're comfortable with seeing how it ends. We already know how this ends. We already know what the prediction is. We already know whatever. And it's being used for divisive reasons, whether it be for fame or business or whatever. At the end of the day, what they're really doing is they're trying to create an alternative reality all the time. You know, and you look at, and I know that you're better versed in this as well. We have a conjunct with Neptune in Pisces with this is Eris, right? No, I have that wrong.
No, that's Juno.
Juno.
Juno is the asteroid of relationship.
So there it is. So there is this reveal of relationships. You're right. The reveal of relationships of like there's an illusion here. You're going to rip off the illusion of what those things are, right? So there's a dynamic here where people are really looking at, you know, I just had this happen. And of course, in the 6th house, you've got Mars, you've got, you know, Uranus, and this communication of thing. You know, and again, I'm kind of sharing too much here. It was just revealed to me a couple of days ago that there's somebody that I would have trusted as a friend, somebody that I went out on a limb for numerous times, absolutely finding joy and a career move to trash me. And I'm like, okay, have a nice life. There it is in the chart. It's right there, right there. They're justified. And it has nothing to do with them, but they think they can find clout with it. And it's funny because where it's a very real setup here is on the grander scale. We have to be ready for some serious change. And we have to look at our own intuition, our own intuitive value to figure out and seek our own truth, not let other people tell us what our truth is. I mean, that's why we've had so many challenges with religion. That's why we're having these challenges with, you know, the political or democratic structure of things. We have to begin to decide what's good for us instead of having everybody else cram it down our throat. I think this is a purification of that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. And that brings me back to sort of thinking about Pluto moving into Aquarius next year, because that's almost like a cleansing, a purification, isn't it? But I think we've also got to look at the fact that in this chart, both Saturn and Pluto are in the 2nd house of finance. And I'm thinking about the world economy, because Uranus in Taurus really has been dominating how finances have been operating in the world in general. And we know it's not been good. We had no idea what was going to cause all the problems, but we knew that Uranus in Taurus was not going to make it pretty for any of us. And of course, most of the world is facing recession and rising costs and fuel costs. It's just extraordinary. And we're moving towards this final square between Saturn and Uranus, which becomes not, it doesn't get exact, but it's more or less exact-ish throughout the month of October. So we see it in September and then in October. And I was always taught with astrology that when two planets like this make their final kind of meeting, it gives the opportunity for resolution.
Yeah.
We have to do something. It's not just going to be handed to us on a plate, but it does give the opportunity for resolution. And my thinking is that when Pluto moves into Aquarius, so if you think of it as a kind of point in time, Pluto will only go to 0 degree of Aquarius before it starts to go retrograde again.
It's got to go station, yeah.
That's right. So Pluto is going to go at 0 degree. And if we take this chart as the chart, it's going to be in the 2nd house. I think there's something about next March, next spring, where 100%. We do see some kind of change with the whole world economy.
Yeah.
A revelation or some kind of a complete restructuring of how finance works. And I guess because we're looking at Aquarius, we're looking more at cryptocurrencies and the way that pans out.
I think a lot of people have this fear of, like, you know, one world economy, one world, you know, whatever, right? You know, new world order stuff. I'm going to say it like this. I think that there is going to be a thing where there's so much manipulation with how people act and react. I mean, don't forget, you know, part of the reason why the big three right now are Zelensky, Putin, and Trump and all of this. Don't forget, Trump involved himself with Zelensky and was impeached. And impeached is basically found wrongdoing, and then they choose whether or not he should stay in office or not. But he was impeached. They found he did wrongdoing. He went to Zelensky and said, find some garbage on my opponent, Joe Biden, so that then I can overthrow him and dig up dirt from him on Hunter and blah, blah, blah. The dynamic with that, though, is, you know, he was justified, he was whatever. But the interesting part of this is that the purpose that's coming out of this, when we look at the planets, that Saturn square to Uranus, and by the way, I think that's also, when you say near square, and this chart shows it as square, right?
Yes.
But we both are looking at the angle. Yeah, we're looking at the angle a little bit. I think that near minute is actually the dynamic in which it's like, yeah, we're going to give you a nudge, but we're not going to do it for you.
Exactly. We have to take responsibility.
You know, it's kind of like the Tower card upside down. It's like, it'll happen, but you're in control of this, right?
Yeah.
Wow, a lot to this.
I want to say one more thing and then move on to the new moon, but I'm just looking at Juno, which is the asteroid, which is actually making a lovely sextile to Uranus. And I think people in general might find that with this Uranus retrograde and round about the energy of kind of now-ish into next week, into the following week, following weeks actually, that some rather unexpected things could happen for people in relationships, which are really nice and that they will be very happy about. So I just think it's nice sometimes to bring in something positive, because it just popped out at me and I thought, oh no, I've got to say that, because it's just a really nice, and there's something destined or meant to be about it because of the North Node. So it's like there's a meant to be element to something that unfolds for sort of people in certain relationships. So that's nice.
Yeah, I think that is nice. And I also think that this, you know, you look at what doesn't present here, right? And in astrology, you look at also what's missing, right? You look at where everything's bunched together. You look at everything where the relations are. And astrology is nothing but relationships. It's a relationship of this star with this planet, with this situation, so forth and so on. You have this emptiness in the 7th house, which is relationships. So it's what you're going to make of it. It's not defined. It's what you're willing to work at. The 10th house, it's about career. What do you want to make of this? Right?
Yeah.
You and I are both talking about how we're doing our channel a little bit differently each time. And,
Yeah.
this is that stuff. And then the
Mm.
first house, it's personal accountability and personal direction, right?
Interesting.
Do you see my correlation with that?
Very good point. I think that's really, really valid because it's and the 12th house, look.
Yeah, in the 12th house as well.
Yeah. And it's like it comes back to this thing, which is my kind of word for the day, which is about the need for everybody to take personal responsibility. We have to take responsibility for our actions. We have to take responsibility for our choices.
Right.
And, there's so much in society at the moment where people are passing the buck, blaming, just, sitting back. We had in the UK, in Liverpool, a gunman who was chasing someone who he wanted to kill.
Mm-hmm.
They burst into the house of an ordinary family sitting there having their tea, shot the daughter, who was 9, dead, shot the mother that just got her wrist, and ran out the back, leaving havoc and mayhem everywhere. So this poor 9-year-old girl, who you would think is safe in her house with her parents, got shot dead. I mean,
Yeah, I just worked on a case last week of, it was rough. It was, I'm hearing things of, again, I'm home with the kids today because I've been busy, and I'm doing my errands, coming back, making sure they're okay, and they're old enough to be left alone, but this is also some prime time. They're going to be in school. I'm not going to have a chance to pal around and
so
and do stuff.
they
But
are your they are your responsibility.
exactly. So it's like, oh, I need to kind of like make sure that I'm going to do this from home today. I'm going to put the Florida thing behind me and whatever. And you
Yeah.
laughed about it. You're like, why are you explaining this? Like, freaking get you. It's okay. But it's funny because the relationship thing too, that I just, the other piece where we see this kind of square Mercury, Pluto, and then if you draw in the moon, and again, that's the typeset of where the moon was at the time, it creates this 8-9-2 thing where, you want to love furiously, you want to be intimate, and then you have this communication of, I'm going to learn things through the conversation, in Virgo, no less. And then you have Uranus sitting there in the, hey, we're still planning on ripping this apart, or Pluto rather, ripping this apart to be able to say, are we doing this the right way?
Yeah.
That's where you're gonna see a lot of relationships reconcile. That's
Yeah.
where you're gonna see a lot of relationships say,
Yeah.
this isn't good for me, it's not good for you.
And that's really good because we don't often see good news at the moment. So I think the fact that there's a healing also that's sort of kind of present in this is good. It has to be
It,
good, isn't it?
that's an example of a square that's going to pay off.
Yeah.
That's an example of where, squares typically get a bad rap because it's like a T-bone, right? It's like you're getting
Yeah.
slammed, two things, the immovable force, whatever. But this is going to emphasize your power position with your emotions. It's also part of the reason why we feel kind of undone. And
Yeah.
then on top of that, you have the further piece of this that Mars is opposite of Sagittarius, the first house. Like, you've got this energy of self-conflict in a lot of other places.
Yeah.
So being able to go back to your person or your people, even, this is a tribe thing as much as it is anything else.
Mm.
So I think that's something to keep into perspective. You want to take a look at the new moon with Virgo and really look at the personal?
Let's take a look at the new moon.
Yeah, because I think that there's, to me, I think that this moon is going to be a catalyst for a lot of stuff. A
It's a
lot of
tricky
stuff.
one. It's a tricky one. Look at that Mars squaring the new moon.
Yeah. So yeah, go ahead. Take it away. What do you see? I
Yeah,
mean,
well,
I see the big
got...
box right out of the gate, but you go crazy.
well, you've got Mars squaring the new moon. You've also got well, actually, no, you haven't. You've got, yes. Just a minute. Let me
Sure.
yeah, Mars is squaring the new moon. It's trining Mercury.
Mhm.
Uranus is squaring Venus in Leo, and Uranus obviously is squaring Saturn. Pluto is trining Mercury. So, and we've also got both Jupiter and Saturn opposing Mercury and Venus. So we need to somehow kind of unpack this a bit, I guess. So I think that it's that Mars in Gemini, which is the real, difficult
It's
element.
I've been describing Mars in Gemini kind of like the bipolar signia,
That's a nice way of putting it. I like that.
because you can be
Yeah.
empowered to be like, you know what, I've waited for this for a long time. I'm going to make this right.
Yeah.
And, or you are, you know what, I'm coming undone with this, so I'm going to take you all with me. This is this is Mars and Gemini energy is, the boat captain that goes down with the ship along with the pilot that drives the plane into the ground at the same time. It's that crazy duality of, and you see it manifested in friendships that people turn. You see it in relationships that you thought were stable are suddenly unstable. And oh, by the way, it's also ones that you knew were concrete became more, the concrete is dried.
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
that make sense?
Yes, it does. And I think, to go back to what you were saying about this, square, which is sort of, I think is actually called a grand cross, because you've
Yep,
got
it is.
fixed, 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 mutable, actually. No,
Mm-hmm.
fixed, Venus. Yeah. So you've got Venus in Leo as one point of the cross opposite Saturn in Aquarius. And then you've got the South Node opposite the North Node and Uranus in Taurus. So you've got a fixed
Mm-hmm.
grand cross. And I just think that fixed energy is very interesting because nobody moves, do they? You think of the fixed
Mm-hmm.
signs. Think of Taurus. I'm Taurus. I'm
Yep.
stubborn.
Yep.
I'm sure you're beginning to get that sense of
You're
me.
not as stuck. But here's the thing, though, with the earth signs, there is the Taurus is stubborn with distance. Virgo is stubborn with judgment. Capricorn is stubborn with the resources, finances piece of it, right?
Superiority.
Well, and it's, but to understand that, I think it's really important here because um, one of the other dynamics that I see in this is when you look at this, you've got this Venus in the 11th house, which is your friends, which is your passion, your connection. The North Node being in Taurus, South Node being in Scorpio. This is
Yeah.
honestly, this is actually a really horrible time to start a relationship in my book, because
Yeah.
what you're
Yeah,
doing is
the new moon is not a great time to do that. No.
right, and this doubles
Not
down with the
particularly.
placements,
Yeah.
because if your South Node is in Scorpio, it's a hookup. It's not a relationship.
Yeah.
And then you're
And
you're at a square with Saturn, so you're not on the right
yeah.
footing.
And I think, look at that seventh house, and it's Aries, and it's Jupiter, Chiron, the galactic center, and Eris. And this to me says there are a lot of relationships at the moment that need some healing. And
Yep.
there's something about this energy, the new moon, which doesn't quite get people there. They're being too pedantic. They're being too Virgo. They're being too picky. Yeah, but you said, and he said, and she said. And they're not owning their own stuff. And that Mercury in Libra in the 12th is just a bit, well, we sort of see both sides and keep balance and everything. So there's somehow, it doesn't get anywhere. Nothing moves with this energy. It's
Useless arguments when you
yes.
externalize it. But I'll make the argument that it's also a great time for personal growth, because
Yeah.
you do have this trine. Of course, the new moon is always virtually in conjunct with the sun, right? That's
Yeah.
part of why it's the new moon,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
and you have the sun and moon in conjunct with, so it's like you might not be able to sort through your emotions, but here's who to help. It is Jupiter.
Yeah.
Who is sitting there going in the trine of like this gentle energy of being able to say, hold on a second, is this what you want in a relationship? You're going to go through, you're going to have some deep seated conversations. And by the way, this started way back with the eclipses earlier in the year. This is just another component and another opportunity to that. You'll also have personal healing going on. This Chiron sitting in the 7th house, right?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, retrogrades. That, is
there for a long time.
Right. And connects with Venus here. This is about you kind of saying, this is what I need. This is self-love time. This is you being able to say, I want to have this for myself. How you go about it means everything. You can make somebody else into the enemy, or you can just own your stuff. It goes back to the same damn thing every time with this chart. Are you going to take personal responsibility and get stuff done? Or are you going to kick the can down the road and not deal with it?
Yeah. And I think with this fixed energy and looking at the Uranus North Node in the 8th house, this is about, because it's a fixed grand cross, it's like saying, you can't expect the other to change. You have to change yourself. If you're not willing to make a change, the other person also won't change. So it's that kind of thing where we get into a stalemate in relationships. Well, if he changed, if he did this, if he did that. No. That's not what it's about. It's actually that the change has to come with us. Either we decide we have a choice, that if the other person behaves or is doing whatever in a way that is not good for us to be around, then we have the choice. We can walk away. But, the only change that happens for people is when they decide to actually work on themselves and change themselves.
I have a book coming out in October, and I'm putting the finishing touches on it. And I have a wonderful editor, incredibly patient, knows enough of you. And through the course of this, I came from, when I first started writing this years ago, I was really angry about some stuff. And it was very cathartic to get it out there. It's why we journal. It's why we, set intentions and burn them and all that other good stuff. But when you're writing a book and you want the world to see like what you've gone through, you want to be particular about how you present it. And the part that I really have had taken away is that when I first wrote it, I was 100% legit in how I wrote it, being a little angry, being a little snarky, being whatever. Then with time and maturity, I began to realize that there were things that I had to own. So I had to reframe it. And some of that's maturity, some of it's perspective. When I see a chart like this, I would remind people to not be reactionary, not be judgmental, and say, why am I noticing this now and I didn't notice it before? Why am I now recognizing that, I had someone, one of the emergencies, so to speak, that came to me. She met this wonderful person. They were talking about building a life. It was a little bit of a whirlwind, but there were boundaries around it. And then he just ghosted her. And she's like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
And I said, my take on this wasn't that there was something wrong with you. It's that it was showing you something. And I think it's very important that we see, why is this being shown the way it is? Why is this happening the way it is? Why is somebody deciding to act this way towards you? Oh, it's because you have, a dynamic that you're allowing that energy to come in. You're allowing those things to happen. You yourself might be focused in on other things that you shouldn't be focused in on. Okay. Thank you for the lesson. This astrology pattern is very much lesson bringing. And it's not lost on me that Mars is sitting there in the 9th house.
Yes.
It's
in education.
In Gemini is the natural curious. right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've got natural curious with the, with the house of learning, higher learning, education, planning, trips, that sort of thing. By the way, great time to be planning trips. Right now I have Florida behind me. I'm going to have parts of Europe behind me, not too soon of time, right? So
Yeah.
this tells me to keep looking for, okay, this is the time for me to plan this. When we go to like worldview stuff, like, if you were on a world stage right now and this is a fixed cross, what does that mean for, say, Ukraine?
Well, no one's going to budge, are they? Nobody is budging. That is the
Mm-hmm.
problem. And actually,
Yeah.
that is the problem. And I think that it was interesting that yesterday, which was yes, it was their Independence Day,
Mm-hmm.
Boris Johnson, the nearly gone Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, turned
Mm-hmm.
up unannounced, or at least secretly, privately,
Mm-hmm.
in Ukraine to see Zelensky. And I think that was a very good display from the UK of the continuing support,
Mm-hmm.
certainly the British government, towards what's going on in Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And, I just think that, I mean, Russia did launch a bomb attack on a train station yesterday, and I think 20 people sadly lost their lives. So they did do something. And I saw something today that the nuclear reactor, at the moment, they've shut down the 2 nuclear reactors that were still operating. So it's all been shut
Mm-hmm.
down. But it's all an argument over how they're going to hook it up, because the Russians want to hook it up so they can funnel the energy to Russia. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
Ukraine's saying, no, we want the energy, naturally, because, they need electricity. So I think that the astrological energy at the moment is very delicate and
Mm-hmm.
very tricky. And I think, having just researched, certainly I've done September, and I've just been doing my research
Yeah.
for October. October is a phenomenal month of extreme change.
Yep.
I mean, just like I could have written a bloody book on October itself.
I would read that. I don't know how to read, right?
And I don't believe that, Brandon.
No, not at all. Yeah. Um, but I think Boris Johnson showing up, I think, was kind of the echoes of Winston Churchill.
Yeah, and I think he's, he the funny thing is, in the UK, that they've interviewed kind of conservative members and also
Mm-hmm.
just people in general. They do these polls, and
Yeah.
most people would prefer to keep Boris Johnson.
Of course.
Take your bloody minds up. You didn't want him. Now they're saying, oh, we're not sure we like Rishi Sunak or Liz Truss. Oh, could we
Because
have Boris back?
it's a chaos metric. It's that same chaos metric that the United States is going through.
Yeah.
It's that same dynamic where, Putin sending bombs into a train station is a
It's terrorism.
it is 100% their own chaos. It's them creating chaos constantly. And when, pay attention to the people that create chaos in your life too.
Yeah.
That is, and for what reasons? There are some people that you truly care for and they're like, hey, I need a hand. That's not chaos. That's friendship.
Yeah.
When people are like, I'm going to create this whirlwind of negative energy, or I'm in a world of negative energy. I mean, it's funny.
Into it.
I look back at this, and you can't help but go through the personal things when you talk about astrology.
Yeah.
This person never contributed to the relationship. They only took from the relationship. So of course, that's why they're going to act like that at the end. They're justifying something. So, I also think with this Virgo new moon, just on the outset of it, it really just in its static self, if we took everything else away except for maybe the sun, which actually represented as this, it's a 7 angle when it comes conjunct. 4 + 3 is 7. And what is that but relationships with higher self, relationships in general. Oh, and by the way, it happens in the 11th house, which is your external networks and that
Yes.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
You've got to have a good foundation of who you are if you're going to bond with somebody in the future. That's simple. There is no more, you can't fake it till you make it. There are light workers. You
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
bullshit people and say, oh, I'll figure it out later. Call it like it is. Call yourself a novice. Say you're learning the trade and go from there. Don't swing it around like you know what you're talking about yet. And I'm not trying to put anybody, I'm trying to put them in their place. I'm not trying to put them, I'm trying to let them know where their ego goes here. And I've watched a lot of people's ego get in their way. And it's a problem. I actually think that this is also a light worker call too. I think we're about to go through a very big light worker thing. You know, again, I'm teasing this Trump video, but the akin to this is that he's going to really unleash this sycophant energy towards him in a rebellion. I mean, you know, we can go back to the Uranus chart if you want to, but this is the world is primed for an uprising, whatever that is. The light workers are in essence the Jedi. There's not a lot of true light workers. There's a lot of people that talk about being light workers. There's a lot of people that capitalize on light worker work. But if you're going to stay true to it, you have to have good intention. You have to, and that doesn't mean you're perfect. That's the other part of this.
And
people
be prepared to work with things. Be prepared to, you know, not, well, I'm not going to that event because so-and-so is going to be there and I don't like their energy. No, 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 no. We have to rise above that. You have to learn to manage.
And again, I'll go back to the book. I'm like, I'll type it out and I'm good. All right, editor, clean this up. And the editor's just like, B, we got some major continuity issues. You know, were you dipping into the penny whiskey, will you? Right?
I think we should do our therapy session.
Oh, I think we should too. Who should I be today?
Right. Well, take the chart down.
I'm sorry, take my what down?
Take the chart down. That's it. So we could be in full
glory. Full glory.
Full glory. Yeah. And I'm going to be the therapist, and you are going to be Volodymyr Zelensky.
Can't you be Boris Johnson? Oh, actually, move Boris Johnson into the screen. Move your microphone into the screen. It'll be the three of us. My gosh, are you keeping him warm at night?
Oh, yes. Or do you want to be the therapist and I'll be Boris Johnson?
I don't want to be the therapist. Be the most inappropriate therapist ever. What's up with your hair?
Huh?
What's up with your hair, Boris Johnson? No, I'll be Zelensky.
He's got his winter hat on to go and see Putin.
You know, and it's funny because I think it's funny because let me see if I can find no, I don't think I have it on this computer, but here I am. How do you like that?
Fantastic.
I don't know if I can. He's a little stoic there, but I'll be him. I'll be him. It looks like Madame Tussauds. It definitely does.
It does. It does.
It's a good looking guy. So I will be playing the role of Volodymyr Zelensky.
If I had a box of tissues, I would put them on the table between us.
I will dab them.
Right. Okay. So we've got the tissues. So, okay. So
this is going to be a 30-second spot. All right, here we go. Therapy of Volodymyr Zelensky. Take one.
Hello, Volodymyr. How has your week been?
I need more arms. I need more supplies. How has my week been? How has my week been? I've been dealing with aggressors, marauders from the north for over 6 months now. Why does the world hate me?
Well, I think you need to tell me how it makes you feel.
I sometimes feel very alone. I feel like I'm on my own. I feel very determined, though. No one will ever take me over.
Right. I think we need to look at your early history and what the relationship was like with your father.
Well, I always wanted to be famous. I know that.
Mm-hmm.
I always wanted attention.
Mm-hmm.
He taught me how to do the right thing. That's what my dad did. He might not have always been 100% there, but when he was, he showed me the right things.
And what about your playmate, Mr. Putin?
Playmate with friends like him, who needs enemies? Like, why am I justified to be angry? Why am I so angry?
Yeah, why are you so angry?
What did I
Lord.
do? What did I do to deserve this?
Well, sometimes in life we don't actually do things to deserve what we get. We just get basically shit thrown at us, and we have
And
to learn how to deal with it.
and that's why I'm so filled with anger and rage. I
And
actually think other people did this to me.
you think other people did this to you. Is there no part of you that feels you could take some sense of responsibility in what's
Oh,
been happening?
I should have never taken a meeting with a former president of the United States. I should have
Oh,
never allowed myself to be susceptible, but I wanted to be famous.
uh,
So I wanted fame. I thought I was doing it now for a good reason for country. I thought I was doing this for a good reason for us to be on a map. And here it is. They turned it against me and made me
yeah, and of course,
susceptible for an invasion.
I'm curious about the fact that you were a comedian.
I'm hysterical. Well, I'm hiding pain with that, right? You know that if I can make the world laugh, then everything's okay.
And there's not a lot to laugh about at the moment, is there, Vlad?
Not at all. And it's
No.
my responsibility to defend this country. I knew where
I
you were
think
going. I knew where you're going.
that's cute.
I got you. What a very principled man, though. And by the way, I don't agree with all of his politics. I just don't. But on
Interesting that it was difficult for you to actually come up with something that wasn't kind of sort of okay, because actually,
hmm,
as far as we know, basically he's been bullied, but he's
yeah,
standing up to the bully, isn't he?
100%. But he's also, listen, there's three things that if I was working with Zelensky, I would say one, you allowed some of this. Like the fact that I think wholesale, I'm speculating and whatever, beat me up in the comments if you want. I think when Trump went there, he was trying to extort information about Hunter Biden and Joe Biden. Two, he was extorting information for Russia. And then
When,
three,
when, when did
let's
Trump go to Ukraine?
he went to Ukraine in 2006. It was the reason why he was impeached.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh
Or
yeah,
at
it
least,
was
oh,
the reason because basically in a nutshell they found evidence that he was trying to basically say to Ukraine, Russia's really mad at you. Russia's really upset that they can't get to Crimea because you guys are like, you got to pay the tolls. We're not going to, we're a sovereign country. You guys can't do this. Right. And then on the flip side of this, then he was, I mean, the Ukraine war is basically Trumpian at its finest. He doesn't have any accountability, goes back to Putin and says, I'm going to tell you why the US won't actually intervene here. I'm going to tell you why NATO won't do this. Instead of Putin saying, I have this natural enemy in NATO and they're going to hold me accountable, Trump turned around and said, oh, NATO won't do this because they know that you know this, or they know that they're afraid that you'll do this way, which made Zelensky, at least Ukraine, very vulnerable. So Ukraine's posturing went away when they were like, yeah, call us bluff. He doesn't have anything. And Ukraine and Zelensky basically got steamrolled by Trump in a meeting. And then when it's very odd that Trump's first foreign visit was to Saudi Arabia. Most of them go to Canada or Mexico or Britain. They don't go to Saudi Arabia. His other foreign trip to Ukraine was all about explaining. He was trying to negotiate something for Putin. That deal fell through. So he said to Putin, we're not going to hold you accountable. I've been talking to everybody here. We will not fight a war with you because we're genuinely afraid of the entire dynamic of the nuclear stuff and everything else. And then Putin just went, that's all I needed to hear. That's all I needed to hear. He waited just long enough. Oh, and by the way, some of the files now that they're saying that you're still missing are directly related to the Ukraine war.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I would try and hide those two if I was Donald Trump. He may have started one world war. The case for Trump being the Antichrist is getting stronger every day. It really is.
With Putin as a close runner-up.
I think Putin is. Here's why I think Trump just got upgraded in terms of the Antichrist race. Putin's still just taking it out on his own people and then other Russian republics. Like, that's really all his aggression has been. Putin is ramping this up. The blood of every Ukraine citizen should be on Trump's hand. The blood of the insurrection on January 6th should be on Trump's hands. Like, he is now divisively, it's so funny because Nostradamus, here we go again with that, talked about a very unlikely agreement between Russia and the United States, between the bear and the eagle.
I remember that. Yes, I remember that.
I think this is what this is. I really do.
Wasn't it against China? There was an agreement between something about Russia joins with the West against China. I remember that as a Nostradamus so-called prediction.
And doesn't this also, I mean, some of this question is the Ukraine component of who they're connected to in the world. So again, I'm not calling Trump the Antichrist. I'm just saying if you're keeping score at home and you're paying attention to things, you would pay attention to this one. You would pay attention to his involvement with this. He was impeached for it because he tried to extort information from Ukraine. And Ukraine's just like, we don't talk about those business dealings. Yeah, we had the Bidens here, but we've had you here 20 times. Biden was here. Biden's family was there 3 times. And it's these world players, these people that are trying to play on this world stage all the time. Because if you do it here in America, it looks bad. If we have a major city in Detroit that is so dilapidated. It is just dilapidated. If we had focused any of our energy, the same amount of energy that we seem to be sending to Ukraine, and I'm not saying we shouldn't be doing humanitarian stuff, but if we sent that same effort domestically to Detroit, it would turn the city around. It was decimated. We don't buy cars, US cars anymore. There's 1,000 other ways that we can make it more efficiently. And capitalism is the lowest cost product is the highest profit. And that is what capitalism is driven by. The United States has pockets of depravity. And we don't pay attention to them because it doesn't pay us anything. If we go to Ukraine, we can get our oil cheaper and take a cut of it. If we negotiate with Taiwan, we can get better goods and services sold to us that are at a cheaper rate. We are able to negotiate with, Saudi Arabia, so forth and so on. We're at the end of the day, we're going to find out that Volodymyr Zelensky was a pawn in a game where he was the king. So he was labeled the king when he shouldn't have been the king per se. He might not have the chops to be the politician, but he sure as hell is the loyal person. He takes responsibility like no one else we've ever seen. But you're going to recognize that that's why they underestimated him. I mean, why? Why else would Putin's intel was part of Trump's conversations. to say, he's a weakling. He won't do this. He's not willing to play ball. You can see Trump saying all those things to Putin. And by the way, Putin.
6 months this war has been going on. 6 months.
Well, and based on this grand trine, it's not going to happen. I think that they've actually had sidebar agreements. This is just my gut feeling. I don't know this, and I'm not justifying any of the other readings that we've had about it. But we always talked about where this would be Zelensky's chance to like do this, do that. They have wholesale. I mean, this war is now concentrated in one area, whereas before it was the entire country. I think that has been because they have had little peace agreements, you know, armistices, so to speak, where they're like, you know what, we're not going to go. Kiev is off the map. We're not going to fight there anymore. We're not going to fight here. We're not going to fight there. So he has brought peace in a way to different parts of the region, but there's still a war front. And it's all about that nuclear site. It's all about bridging Crimea. It's all about all of that. It's the Donbass region, right?
Yeah.
So it's, and by the way, Trump looks, he's going to get away with it again. Putin is going to get away with it again. And there is going to be a reveal in Russia that I still think they're going to turn on Putin. I think they're going to turn on the Putin regime. Well, I mean, think about what the Virgo new moon is going to do. You know, it sets that tone. What does Uranus? I mean, in Star Wars, the rebels, the good guys were the rebellion. The bad guys were the empire. But it was only because the empire was originally the good guys until they were infiltrated by a fake senator, a fake politician, and turned it to his own power base. Then the rebellions were considered the bad guys. Up was down, down was up. We are literally living in the Star Wars universe right now. Welcome to the Cantina scene. Dun, 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 dun. All right, we got to wrap up. We're like 9 hours in.
We've been talking for hours.
I just love talking to you.
Oh, Brandon, you haven't flirted with me tonight.
Yeah, check your text.
Check my what?
Check your text.
Oh.
You'll look lovely as always.
Oh,
well, maybe then it's just the energy of I'm confident enough with our relationship that I don't need to do things that are superficial anymore.
Do you know, that is absolutely spot on. I feel the same.
I know we're cool. And we're in episode 16, which means we've been doing this for 4 months. And you and I don't need to be like, hey, you look great today. Hey, whatever. And I did give you, apparently I have to go to the doctor's. I don't have to give you a compliment anymore, but I gave you a huge one at the beginning because I talked about your video.
Yeah.
You know, to me, that's our essence anyways. And it's funny, as this rolls out, and I've seen the criticisms and I've gotten notes, and they're just, flirting with a woman and, judgment.
Yeah, I want to say something about, and I can't remember the name of the person that commented on this, but this person had commented quite a few things, and it's not a criticism. It was just they raised an interesting point about the last video that we did, where I was very honest about my feelings and my narcissism and all of that. And they said, oh, Penny's still insecure. Well, I want to come back on that because actually, well, thank God I still have some insecurities, because if I didn't, I'd be the most horrible kind of stuck up, difficult person to contend with, because actually the human psyche is made up of a kind of myriad of mosaic colors and pieces, which make us these sort of wonderful sparkling facets, like a crystal, like a, that there's all sorts of parts to us. And insecurity in some measure actually helps us, because if we didn't have that ability to sense maybe something's not right here, or something needs to be, I need to go a different way, we would actually be totally being controlled by our mind without being in touch with our intuition and our gut feeling, quite simply. I don't know what if you want to say something before we finish.
No, you are absolutely spot on. And it's funny, I'm teaching a class in Florida about finding your intuition, and you're paying attention to your intuition. I'm doing a show down there. I'm doing, click on the link below and get your tickets. And it's a great event. I found a really great promoter. She's amazing. She's got her act together. It's that thing that I was saying earlier about being true to the work. Son of a gun. I'm so blessed to find you, Penny. I'm so blessed to be connected with you. I'm blessed to be connected with Mary Ellen. I'm blessed to be, because I just get this last reminder of this dipshit who I gave everything to act and treat me in that way. And I'm just like, thank you for the lesson. You didn't get anything right, by the way, but have a good time. Or at least you don't know the full story, which is par for the course, because that would require you to do work and be sober, but whatever. There's a dynamic to this that doesn't allow you to stay static. Even though this is a fixed grand cross, this is a pause. This is a timeout chair. This is something where you can say, here you go. And, it's funny, we see those comments, and you and I talked about this earlier, or early on. People are going to say what they're going to say. I mean, and thank you so much for the.
I welcome it.
If it's constructive.
Every single comment. And if I think I have something that will be valuable to reply in some way, I will do.
It's incredibly valuable. Here's the point of a value where somebody's like, well, Brandon, will you just shut up? Penny has something to say. Like, okay, I'm sorry. Talked a little bit too much there, didn't I? But then you and I joked about it, and you're like, okay, there you go. And like, how are we going to handle this? Yeah, she's right, but okay, whatever. You didn't get offended, but you're like, that's a good point. I didn't get offended. I'm like, hey, that's a good point. We got better because of that. That's how, first of all, mature people take criticism and evaluate it.
I am hugely grateful to the person that commented, Penny might still be a bit insecure. It gave me a valuable gift, because I learned more about myself through going into myself and thinking, am I insecure? What does that mean? Oh, actually, it's quite important to have an element of insecurity, because it makes me, you give me a tissue, oh, I'm gonna cry. It makes me congruent and real. So thank you to that person.
Isn't that the reminder in all of this? And it goes back to when you're doing these sessions with people, they're real people. When you're doing these readings, it's about real application. When you choose to go the other way and you dismiss somebody, there's a real emotion on the other side of it. I think that this is like the human condition being played out. And I think that's what a lot of this is when we start to talk about it. And that's why it becomes so real.
Yeah. And what's interesting is, just to sort of take this just one step further, and then we'll finish, that sometimes I will get a client and the chart. Did you just say something funny? I'll pick it up.
I said, no, we won't.
So sometimes I'll get the chart all set up, and I'll just feel maybe uncomfortable or insecure about the fact that I'm going to work with this person. But what that does, because of my background as a psychotherapist, is it tells me a huge amount about the person I'm about to read for, because what I'm already picking up is something in the transference of their energy to my energy, which will enable me to actually help them understand themselves better and the energies in their chart.
And Penny, I mean, as performers, as lifelong people that have gone to stage in various levels, isn't that butterfly, that nut that you feel in the middle of your stomach, that like coil churning, you're like, oh, and some people get overwhelmed by it. And when you coach other people that get that, the first thing you say is thank God you have that. Because if you don't have that, that creates adrenaline. That creates that right thing of like, it means something to you. It also means you're being activated, that this is your moment to shine. You may know all the songs 20-fold. You may know that messages are going to come through and you can trust your spirit. But the fact that you have that means everything, because spirit's letting you know you're in the right place. That's why I talk too much. That's why I do those things. That's why you sit there and you go, I have to help this boy. He's all over the place.
And if I get butterflies, it's actually what one has to remember, that with butterflies or anxiety, is it anxiety or is it actually excitement? Because they
Intuition.
actually feel the same.
Without sharing too much, I will tell you that that is 100% my class down in Florida, where I talk about how this becomes the core center of your solar plexus and how it works with your heart chakra, how it works with your throat chakra of action. It implores how you work. It implores how you roll. And it allows you to be very congruent to the world around you. It allows you to be like, this is go time. I'm nervous. Why am I so nervous?
And do you know what some people have completely forgotten about? They're not able. There's a person-centered therapist who was called Carl Rogers, and he used to talk about the need to be congruent. But he said also one has to have unconditional positive regard for another. Unconditional positive regard. And isn't that just what nobody is doing at the moment?
It's disgusting. Even these, it's God, we are turning this into a therapy session. I have learned that instead of reviling, I say, where is my lesson in this? How do I turn? And it sounds like I'm selfish. It sounds like I'm being narcissistic, which is the most misdiagnosed thing in the United States today.
In the world, it is the most misdiagnosed.
It is, and you've really shed light on that to me, by the way, because I've been like, okay, well, I've always been taught that's wrong. There is a healthy lane for it. But I think that when somebody projects on me, I have to look at what their projection is, but I don't have to understand it. I don't have to understand that their trauma response is because they didn't do the work to understand what that trauma base is. And by the way, in your friend group, and that's really what we've been talking about with this energy. You're going to see trauma responses. You're going to see trauma responses. Right?
It's not an easy new moon. It's
no,
not let's charge our crystals and let's kind of, leap away in the fields with the fairies and pick pretty flowers. It's not about all positive intentions. This is a real teacher kind of new moon. This is a do the work, you'll get the reward by the full moon, possibly.
Bam. Bam. All right, love, let's sign out.
That's it then.
Oh, heart taps to everybody. Love and care for one another. Let each other remind one another to simply keep going. Penny, keep going. Let's keep going. I can't wait for episode 17 already.
Me too. My age.
4 months. I think that's the anniversary of like Amethyst.
This is one of the longest relationships I've had.
And it's long distance. What does this say about you?
It says Aquarius is on my descendant.
I'll be on your descendant. What? Did you just tell me to descend you? What is that? I don't. What is that one?
You just heard it that way. I said Aquarius is on my descendant. It's in my 7th house, which means I tend to choose people who are kind of either physically unavailable or distance unavailable or emotionally unavailable.
We have the same rising. Hold on. We have the same problem.
We do.
This is working out great.
Yes. It's perfect.
And it's where my moon is. It's where my moon is.
Yes, and I don't have to see you.
Gosh. So when I finally get to Malta, we're literally just going to sit in the room and go, I don't know, what do you want to do?
No, you can sit up the other end of the apartment and talk to me on your laptop. We'll just
I'll text you in the morning. Ciao, baby.
Yeah, ciao. Night.
All right. Listen, thank you so much, guys. We'll see you soon.
Take care. Ciao.
All right. Bye-bye.